Daniel Kepler, a retired assassin believed dead for nearly 2 decades, is found murdered in the Sahara Desert, his throat cut with surgical precision. As investigators dig into his shadowy past, they uncover a web of government coups, illegal arms deals, and a mission gone horribly wrong in Europe. But the deeper they go, the more they realize Kepler's death is just the beginning. Hidden beneath his rented home, they find a vault containing a chilling list of names, some crossed out, others still alive, and a missing file that could topple governments. What started as a murder investigation is quickly unraveling into a deadly race to find a secret that could destroy everything. Whoever killed Kepler hadn't just wanted him dead. They had wanted it done professionally and cleanly. This was not a crime of emotion. It was an execution, and the method suggested someone trained, someone familiar with Kepler's own techniques. What disturbed investigators most was the eerie similarity between the murder and Kepler's own methods during his active years as a contract assassin. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, Kepler was linked to at least 9 killings across Europe and North Africa. Though none were ever formally charged to him, intelligence agencies had long suspected him of being the silent hand behind several disappearances of high-value targets. The consistency in each case was chilling. No noise, no struggle, no trace. The weapon was often a narrow blade used with surgical precision, just like the one used on him. It appeared the killer had not only known Kepler, but had studied him, maybe even worked alongside him. There were no bruises, no scratches, and no defensive wounds on Kepler's body. Toxicology showed no signs of sedatives, which meant he was likely awake at the time of his death. That raised an unsettling possibility. He knew his killer. Perhaps he had let them get close. Maybe he trusted them. The theory gained weight when investigators found no sign of forced entry at his home. Nothing had been stolen. His hidden vault, later discovered beneath the bedroom floor, was still intact at that time. As authorities pieced together the timeline, it became clear that the murder wasn't rushed. It was methodical. The killer had watched, waited, and struck only when the conditions were perfect. This wasn't about revenge or money. It was about closure. Someone had come to finish something that had been left undone for decades. As investigators searched Kepler's modest desert home, they found very little on the surface. A sparse living space, a few books, basic furniture, and a small radio. There were no personal photos, no letters, no visible electronics. It looked more like a temporary hideout than a place someone had lived in for over a decade. But something about the bedroom floor didn't sit right with one of the detectives. A faint, almost invisible seam in the floor tiles near the bed led them to pry deeper. What they uncovered changed the entire scope of the investigation. Beneath, the floor was a hidden steel hatch, sealed tight and protected by a complex mechanical lock. It took hours to force it open, but once inside, the team found a small underground vault no larger than a walk-in closet. Inside was a collection of carefully stored items: hard drives, notebooks, a rusted film projector, and a locked metal case. There were also multiple passports, all with different names and nationalities, but all bearing Kepler's photo. Each identity had a corresponding stash of foreign currency. Every detail had been thought through. Kepler had planned for the worst. The most disturbing find was a thick, leather-bound folder containing a list of names written by hand. Some names had been crossed out with red ink. Others were underlined. Investigators would soon learn that this was no ordinary list. It included high-level diplomats, known arms dealers, and military officials from various countries. Some were still alive. Some were long dead. But the common thread was that all of them had at some point been tied to covert operations or international scandals that had never made headlines. Hidden behind the list, in a manila envelope marked only with the words "Do not open unless I'm dead," were several grainy photographs and coordinates written in code. The envelope also included a single, chilling sentence: "What's buried will bury them." It was clear that Kepler had not just been hiding, he had been documenting, preparing, building a collection of leverage or insurance. What began as a simple murder was now spiraling into something far more dangerous: a map of secrets someone had killed to keep buried. The list found in the underground vault quickly became the center of the investigation. It was handwritten, precise, and divided into 3 columns. The first listed names, many accompanied by only a country or a brief title. The second had dates, some from as far back as the early 1980s. The third column was the most disturbing. Some names were crossed out in red, while others remained untouched. There were 27 names in total. 9 of them had died under mysterious circumstances, officially ruled as suicides, accidents, or natural causes. But now, each case was being reevaluated under a different lens. Interpol agents worked in silence, pulling files from cold case archives. A Belgian arms inspector who died in a hotel fire. A French intelligence officer found drowned in a lake, fully clothed. A Nigerian diplomat killed in what was described as a random mugging in Berlin. These were not coincidences. Each of these individuals' connections to black market weapons trading, illegal surveillance programs, or foreign coups. It became clear that Kepler had been tracking these people for years, maybe even decades. But was he eliminating them, or merely observing? More troubling were the names still alive. Among them was a retired U.S. ambassador, a former CEO of a major European defense firm, and a military commander currently advising a Middle Eastern government. When discreet warnings were sent out through official channels, several of these individuals abruptly increased their private security. One even vanished entirely, his whereabouts now unknown. Word had gotten out. Someone else had seen the list. Implications were enormous. If Kepler had been working on this file in secret, then he may have been gathering evidence to expose something far more dangerous than anyone realized. The list wasn't just a record. It was a roadmap of corruption, spanning continents, but no one knew who else had seen it. The existence of the list alone was enough to threaten careers, reputations, even national security. It explained why Kepler might have been hunted down. It also meant one terrifying thing. Whoever had killed him likely knew about the list before. It was found, and they weren't finished yet. Among the files recovered from Kepler's hidden vault, one stood out immediately. A corrupted hard drive labeled PRG-03 had been stored in a lead-lined case, a method often used to shield sensitive data from electromagnetic interference or tracking. It took cyber forensics experts over 2 weeks to partially decrypt the contents. What they uncovered shed new light on the operation that had supposedly claimed Kepler's life in 2005, an operation long buried and quietly erased from official records. The file contained fragments of surveillance footage, operational plans and mission briefings related to a botched extraction in Prague. The mission, known internally as Spectre, was supposed to recover a rogue intelligence asset who had gone dark with a hard drive containing classified information on European arms networks. Kepler had been assigned as the mission's close quarter specialist, tasked with handling the recovery quietly and cleanly, but according to the footage, things went wrong almost immediately. Video from a hidden camera revealed a chaotic ambush, gunfire, sirens, a compromised exit route. The asset was never recovered, and one operative was killed during the escape. The most alarming detail, however, was in the final minutes of the video. A brief, grainy clip showing Kepler exchanging glances with a man in a suit outside the extraction site. Facial recognition flagged him as a high-ranking operative from an allied intelligence agency. That man had no reason to be there and was never listed in the official operation logs. Someone had betrayed the team from within. Kepler's disappearance after the mission now made sense. He hadn't drowned. He had fled. The betrayal was real, and he knew someone powerful had set him up to take the fall. That betrayal forced him underground. The Prague file was his insurance, proof of a cover-up involving multiple nations. What began as a failed extraction turned into a dangerous secret buried under layers of misinformation. But the file was incomplete. Key pieces of video were missing. Audio was corrupted. It appeared someone had already tried to destroy it. Whether Kepler had made copies or if the original was ever intact remained unclear. What was certain was this: whoever had orchestrated the betrayal in Prague may have finally come back to finish the job. As the investigation into Daniel Kepler's death deepened, new leads began to surface that pointed toward a much wider network of corruption and secrecy. Analysts started connecting the names on Kepler's kill list and the contents of the Prague file with a series of classified operations that had taken place over the last 3 decades. Patterns began to emerge: hidden financial transactions, covert arms shipments, and a trail of shell companies that linked powerful figures across Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. What had once seemed like isolated incidents now formed a disturbing picture of a silent war fought in the shadows. One of the most significant discoveries came from a banking analyst working with Interpol. A series of wire transfers dating back to 2004 revealed large sums of money being funneled into offshore accounts. The sender, a shell corporation based in Luxembourg with ties to a major European defense contractor. The recipient, an unregistered logistics firm in Sudan later linked to weapons trafficking. These payments matched dates connected to some of the names on Kepler's list, including a diplomat who had mysteriously vanished in 2008. The more investigators uncovered, the more it looked like Kepler had been sitting on evidence of a decades-long conspiracy involving illegal arms deals brokered by intelligence insiders. The corruption didn't end with private companies. A leaked document from Kepler's files contained brief, cryptic summaries of confidential meetings. Some had taken place in embassies, others in remote villas protected by private security. Several of the meetings involved retired generals, sitting politicians, and intelligence advisors. The agenda was always the same: destabilize foreign governments, supply weapons to one side, and profit from the chaos that followed. Publicly, no one acknowledged these findings, but quietly, shifts were happening. Political figures started distancing themselves from old allies. 2 prominent officials resigned without explanation. A scheduled defense summit was suddenly canceled. Governments that had once denied any knowledge of Kepler were now silent. What had once been viewed as the work of a lone assassin now appeared to be part of a much larger machine, one powered by secrets, fueled by money, and protected by those in power. Kepler hadn't just documented corruption. He had exposed a hidden structure that those involved would kill to protect. Despite the magnitude of evidence found in Kepler's hidden vault, investigators quickly realized something critical was missing. Among the carefully preserved documents, hard drives, and coded notes, there were multiple references to a file named Mirage. It appeared again and again, in folder labels, in handwritten notes, even in the margins of Kepler's kill list. Yet the actual file was nowhere to be found. According to the metadata buried deep in one of the decrypted drives, Mirage was a video compilation. It was large, heavily encrypted, and described simply in one note as the detonator. Whatever it contained, Kepler believed it was powerful enough to bring entire systems crashing down. Pressure mounted as agencies scrambled to locate it. Some believed the file had been stolen in the hours after Kepler's death. Others thought he had hidden it somewhere even deeper, perhaps in one of his other safe houses across Europe or North Africa. One theory suggested that Kepler may have scheduled it to be released automatically after his death. But if that was true, it hadn't happened yet. The longer the file remained missing, the more dangerous the situation became. Whispers of the file's existence had already reached diplomatic circles. People were scared. And when powerful people feel threatened, they tend to act without warning. What little information investigators had about Mirage suggested it included footage of high-level meetings between military leaders and private contractors, some of whom were tied to foreign insurgent groups. There were mentions of black site deals, off-book military support, and discussions about manipulating elections in developing nations. In other words, it was a digital time bomb, capable of destroying careers, collapsing alliances, and exposing decades of quiet warfare waged by those who were never supposed to be seen. Kepler's encrypted will, also found in the vault, confirmed his awareness of the danger. He had written that if Mirage ever surfaced, it would not only confirm everything he had tried to document, but would likely trigger a chain reaction far beyond his control. That file was the final piece, the one thing his enemies feared most. Now it was missing, and whoever had it held the fate of more than just a man. They held the power to rewrite history or bury it forever. As investigators worked tirelessly to track down the missing Mirage file, strange things began to happen. Several people connected to the case, including low-level intelligence officers and forensic experts, started receiving veiled threats. At first, it seemed like paranoia, anonymous phone calls, unmarked cars trailing investigators, and strange figures seen outside hotel windows. But then, 2 deaths occurred under suspicious circumstances. The first was a retired military officer who had been assisting with the analysis of Kepler's kill list. He was found in his home. His death ruled as a suicide, though the manner of his passing was inconsistent with the initial investigation. There were no signs of a struggle, no indication of depression or prior threats. Yet, he had been found with a single gunshot wound to the head, a clean, professional execution. The note left behind was strange. A single line written in red ink, "They are watching." A few days later, another individual linked to the Prague mission was found dead in a similarly odd fashion. This time, a gas leak was declared the cause of death, but it was later discovered that the gas had been intentionally tampered with. Again, no immediate signs pointed to foul play, but there were too many coincidences to dismiss. Both deaths seemed orchestrated to appear as accidents, but they carried the same unsettling hallmark. Someone was cleaning up loose ends, and those trying to dig deeper into Kepler's death and potential whereabouts of the Mirage file were now at risk. Meanwhile, rumors about the file spread through intelligence and diplomatic circles. Unverified reports claimed that several high-ranking officials had gone into hiding, citing credible threats related to Kepler's files. One well-placed source hinted that the file contained not only footage of high-level meetings, but also detailed accounts of covert operations involving the transfer of weapons to warlords and insurgents, many of them now holding positions of power in unstable regions. Some of the names from Kepler's list, long considered irrelevant or dead, were reportedly still alive, and they had been waiting to make their next move. As these whispers reached the public, the investigation began to take on a different tone. What was originally a murder case had transformed into a high-stakes international game, with powerful enemies willing to do anything to ensure the truth stayed buried. Every day, the hunt for Mirage grew more dangerous, and with each passing moment, the stakes increased. The file had to be found before it fell into the wrong hands, or the consequences could be catastrophic. The hunt wasn't just for a missing piece of evidence anymore, it was for the truth, and the cost of revealing it had already started to claim lives. Weeks passed, and the investigation into the missing Mirage file reached a fever pitch. Despite mounting pressure from all corners, every lead seemed to circle back on itself like an endless maze. As international agencies and private contractors scrambled to track down the elusive file, one of Kepler's former colleagues, a retired MI6 officer named Thomas Carver, approached the authorities with a disturbing tip. Carver had worked alongside Kepler on several covert missions and had been quietly watching the investigation unfold from the sidelines. He was an outsider now, but he knew the deadly world Kepler had inhabited all too well. Carver's information came as a shock. He claimed that the Mirage file wasn't just a piece of explosive evidence, it was a key to a much larger scheme. According to Carver, Kepler had not only compiled damning footage of global military and intelligence operations, but had also created a separate encrypted document that contained a detailed map of hidden assets and financial transactions that spanned decades. These assets were not just physical, they were political. The file contained names of politicians, military leaders, and corporate magnates who had been involved in under-the-table deals for years, many of whom still held power. Today, Carver's revelation shifted the investigation into overdrive. With the file now known to contain so much more than just a collection of incriminating videos, it became apparent why there were so many efforts to erase its existence. If the contents were ever revealed to the public, governments could collapse, international alliances could fracture, and careers of the most powerful figures in the world could come to a swift end. The Mirage file, as it turned out, wasn't just a tool to destroy reputations. It was the key to dismantling the very systems that had allowed such widespread corruption to thrive. Then, in a break that seemed almost too convenient, a whistleblower from within one of the private intelligence firms that had been linked to Kepler's operations came forward. The whistleblower, using a secure channel, claimed to have the missing file in their possession. They promised to release it to the public if certain conditions were met, conditions that seemed innocuous at first. But the deeper authorities dug, the clearer it became that the whistleblower was not a hero. They were just another cog in the machine, manipulating the situation for their own benefit. The final twist came when investigators realized that the Mirage file, while still out of reach, was no longer the most dangerous element in play. The real threat was the fact that so many people, some of the most powerful individuals on the planet, were now moving to secure it, and they would stop at nothing to ensure it remained hidden forever. Kepler had known this, which was why he had disappeared in the first place. In the end, the hunt for the file would reveal the most terrifying truth of all. Some secrets are better left buried, for they have the power to destroy everything in their wake.